Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today we're talking about a very exciting project called Virtue Poker. And to explain it further, we have a very important person. He is the co-founder, and his name is Ryan Gittleson. Ryan, thank you very much for being on the channel today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and also I understand you're in Tokyo using the Wi-Fi in the hotel, so thank you for taking the time out of your travels. No doubt you're doing the rounds to promote what is a very exciting poker-based blockchain project. So how's it all going so far?
It went really well. Was able to connect with a lot of interesting people, including getting some exposure in some Japanese media. So definitely trying to, expose our project to new markets.
Sure.
But overall, a successful day.
Excellent. And obviously, poker is certainly not my strong point. It's not something I typically speak of, as you'd appreciate. But this one really, it piqued my interest for many reasons. We're going to explore that. But Ryan, let's talk about you first. You have a lot of experience in the business domain. So you have business development and marketing experience and a lot of background in terms of specific businesses that you've represented. You've also been involved in many different custom acquisitions, and also you have been involved in Consensus, which is a very important privately backed blockchain entity, or private company that supports blockchain startups. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself? Obviously, you've graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, so you have an academic background too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of my background, I studied politics and economics at University of Pennsylvania. I graduated and started my career in finance and in sales. And I transitioned into do customer acquisition, so mainly digital marketing for a mobile application in New York called Today Ticks. I was really interested in payments, and I thought mobile payments were the future at the time. So I came on board that company and helped scale their user base from about 100,000 to 750,000. And this was around August of 2015. I was introduced to a guy who worked for a company called Consensus by a mutual acquaintance in Brooklyn, and we exchanged the typical chit chat of, what do you do for work? And he told me about this next generation blockchain technology platform called Ethereum, to which I said, I don't understand a single word in that sentence. Can we continue the conversation? I'd love to come in for an interview. At the time, Consensus was about 20 people. If you Googled blockchain technology, pretty much nothing came up.
Right.
I was instantly captivated. I met Joe Lubin shortly thereafter and quit my job, and became, what really piqued my interest was, as I said, I was interested in payments. And when it came to learning the ins and outs of, a decentralized ledger solution, I thought that this was the future. So I came on board Consensus in around October of 2015. I was about the 30th employee. And began working along with my co-founder Jim Barry on Virtue Poker. And from there is history. We've been working on the app for about 2.5 years. Our team has scaled from 2 to 17, and we're looking to bring the alpha to market in May.
Okay, so obviously, blockchain's been something very exciting to you, and you clearly have important experience that really situates you well to lead this project. But let's talk about the fundamentals in terms of its simplicity and in a reference to it more, I suppose, in a nutshell. So if we could talk about what Virtue Poker is for the audience who may not know anything about it.
Yeah, for sure. So there's two core things that we do in Virtue Poker that's different than a traditional online poker site. So the first is the way that we conduct the card shuffling and gameplay. So instead of having a traditional centralized random number generator that's not transparent, we use a peer-to-peer card shuffling algorithm called mental poker that involves all players seated at a particular table and shuffling the deck of cards for each hand played on the platform. And the reason why we felt this is important is in a traditional live casino, you see the dealer shuffling the deck. There's cameras all around you. There isn't really a question, is the game fair?
Right.
In the online environment, there isn't the same trust. There was a scandal back in 2007, I believe it was Absolute Poker and Ultimate Bet, where a company insider gained access to an administrative account that could see all of the players' cards on the platform. And over the course of 18 months, that player won over $22 million, won 14 standard deviations above the mean.
Right.
And ever since then, that broke players' trust. I suspect that there are many companies that are honest, but because of that perception of doubt, we tackled this problem by implementing this shuffling algorithm that it's been written about since the late 70s. We didn't invent it, but it's never been put in a consumer-facing, production-ready application, and we'll be the first to do that. The second element of Virtue Poker is how we actually interact with the blockchain. So one of the other core issues in online poker is the security of player funds. So in traditional online poker, you could think of the operators as a centralized bank. All of the players deposit funds with the operator, which is held in their account. Mm-hmm. As they win and lose money, the account balance for each player is updated, and then they need to request a withdrawal from the site. And then most people are familiar with the full tilt scandal, which came up in 2011, where it was discovered that there was a $300 million plus shortfall of player deposits. Essentially, the operators, the owners, were taking the players' deposits and putting them into their back pocket. So we addressed this problem by using a combination of user-owned digital wallets and Ethereum smart contracts. So instead of that traditional deposit and withdrawal process, when you download the client, you create your own wallet. You fund that wallet with cryptocurrency. When you want to buy into a table, you send a transaction from your wallet to an Ethereum smart contract, which represents a poker table. So included in that contract, the game parameters, it is a 3-person sit and go. The buy-in is 1 Ether each. The first place gets 75%, second place gets 25%. Right. And those funds locked in that smart contract that functions as a short-term escrow agent while players go through that mental poker process and play a game of poker. Mm-hmm. And the contract knows to auto-execute either when a player leaves the table for a cash game or at the end of a tournament for a sit-and-go or multi-table tournament. So we never have custody over player funds. They're either in your wallet or locked in that smart contract on Ethereum. So we can never run off with your money. If we get shut down, seized for any particular reason, your money is still safe.
What's interesting, sorry to interrupt, it's very interesting, asking you, particularly the question of it in a nutshell, because really it's an implausible task. There's so much to explain of it. But if we could now just unpack a few more things you were alluding to with regard to the problems, the precipitators for this project, the things that really inspired you. You've mentioned some key ones. But let's talk about now things like hackability. Let's talk about that in the context of centralized controls and perhaps some other key features of really what motivated you, in consideration of your white paper that has outlined very specific items that really prompted this design.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of hackability, with regards to player deposits, it's a lot of trust that players must place with anyone, especially with a site. I mean, PokerStars has a stellar reputation, but they hold over $1 billion worth of player funds. Right. They became too big to fail for poker, in essence, and being a very large central bank. For offshore sites, there isn't even the same type of reputation standard, and players are still required to blindly send money and hope that their money will be safe and secure. So from that standpoint, we felt that a decentralized solution and an Ethereum smart contract was a really good use case for this industry. And then second, with regards to the random number generator, having all players involved in shuffling the deck of cards removes that perception of doubt and that question of if the game is fair. And we felt that versus a centralized RNG that requires a operator to, yes, get tested, but only recertified every 5 years. So what goes on between certification and that 5-year period is an open question. We felt that these were two architectural decisions that we felt would add value to this online poker industry. Okay. And then one of the other problems I allude to, which we don't decentralize initially, is game security. So one of the misconceptions of poker, of decentralized poker, is that there's no way to be able to prevent bots, multi-accounting, and account sharing, which are 3 common problems in online poker. Right. But the way that we are addressing this is we are having a centralized repository, which initially we will own of player data, and I mean this with regards to hand history and other data points that are used to provide game security provisions. So that we have a team of game security experts who will monitor this data to ensure that bots are kicked out of the platform, people can't create multiple accounts, and people can't share accounts to, again, improve the game integrity on Virtue Poker.
I see, and obviously, as you mentioned before, you've got a very diverse team. So let's talk about that for a moment. You've considered not only the poker expertise required, but very importantly, the blockchain expertise that's essential to build this out. And you mentioned also that you've been doing this for some time with the team. So let's talk about that in the context of your holistic, plan.
Sure. Yeah. So, just to give a little bio about the team. So, Jim Barry, who is our co-founder and our lead blockchain developer, he's been working in game development for 30 years. He started his career working at NASA and then transitioned to companies like EA and LookingGlass. Mm-hmm. And he joined Consensus in May of 2015. Before I even joined, he's been doing Solidity development ever since. He's become an expert in doing software development on chain. Mm-hmm. And then we felt that we've needed to beef up our expertise for individuals who've actually developed and shipped code specifically in the online gaming industry. So we hired 2 product managers, one Jose Luis Diaz, who worked 18 years for various online gaming companies, and Colin Higgins, who was a senior product manager at Full Tilt for 7 years. Who helped introduce a lot of their new features. Both of them have helped steer the ship in terms of helping us develop a app that's suitable for the global poker audience.
I see.
And then sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what's impressive also is that you, as you mentioned before, you're the first in the world, to your knowledge, doing this kind of innovative approach to, I guess, the decentralized poker platform. And no doubt many of these people would have been excited with their expertise and seeing the potential, would have jumped on board, and that's perhaps why you've got such quality in your team?
Mental poker has been written about. There's several variations in papers that have been put out there, and Jim Barry took a look at all of these and came up with a hybrid approach, which is what is integrated into our application. And in terms of our ability to scale our team, we're trying to tackle online poker with a different approach. We're not trying to build an existing competing solution that has the same fundamental architecture. So we've been able to attract some solid talent to our team relatively quickly. So we scaled our team from the beginning of this year from 7 to 17 in the first 3 months.
Wow, that's quite impressive. Well, let's now go to your website for a moment. Obviously, there's a lot of information. You can certainly access the white paper, guys, if you do want to have a very robust read of the fundamentals themselves. And it says that you are trying to play without fear and that you are the future of online poker, in the sense that obviously blockchain and decentralization are now the buzzword for, arguably all poker industry and poker projects that are now considering the benefits. But you're leading the way. So what sets you apart? Let's talk about the tech. You mentioned or alluded to the mental poker design. What specifics can you tell us about that in the terms of tech?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm not aware of another company that is trying to tackle online poker using our specific architecture who's as far along as we are. Mm-hmm. Mental poker is a really tricky beast to tackle. There are some key fundamental drawbacks of having this peer-to-peer card shuffling algorithm that we've been able to solve actually quite recently this year that we think will give us a leg up. It's not necessarily a copy and paste from the papers that are out there publicly into an application. And I think what sets us apart is we have the bottom-up expertise from the blockchain sector, and we have the top-down expertise from people who have worked specifically in online poker. Dan Goldman, our current CMO, was the first CMO of PokerStars who helped scale. He was the 7th employee of PokerStars who helped scale their company from a few hundred users to a few million. And, and him, along with a few other of our team members, including one of our new advisors, Damian Sokol, was the CEO of Poker Strategy, which got acquired by Playtech. He helped run the B2B poker operations for them for a couple of years before starting his own venture. Using input from the industry expertise from both domains, I think, is what will set Virtue Poker apart and help us be successful in the market.
I see, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, you do have a stellar team. Again, we're going to talk about the advisors later on, and that's even perhaps more impressive. But let's talk a little bit more about the nature of mental poker in the sense of it being a protocol. We hear that word thrown around quite a lot, but it is your own design. Have you patented that, and is it a product essentially that no one else will be able to use, only the Virtue Poker company?
We haven't decided whether or not we're going to go open source or closed source yet with our code base. The fundamental core idea of including all players seated at a table, whether it be an online casino game or a poker game, in terms of including them in card shuffling, could be applied to other game types. Part of the challenge with deciding open source versus closed source is we are a online gambling company, and there are restrictions and various laws that are different in each jurisdiction that you operate within. So publicly releasing our code base and then having someone potentially take that code base and create their own version of an unlicensed online poker operation is definitely a risk. But after we get through our token sale and once we launch our alpha, we are going to be expanding our team with legal counsel in various jurisdictions around the world to get some clarity to these tough questions. Currently, we've worked with counsel in the US and in the EU, going to continue to drill down and get more clarity around that as we continue to progress.
Okay. What was impressive also in your white paper is you have a very specific legal team or a series of legal advisors, obviously focused on building out your project globally. Is that your plan, or are you focused on one particular nation or country right now?
No, focused on global access depending upon legal feedback. So in the U.S., we use Jeff Ifrah of Ifrah Law. He's a very well-known iGaming attorney here there in the U.S.
Right.
He helped pass the legislation that allowed Delaware and the state of Nevada to share liquidity, which for people in the U.S. was a big deal because both markets were suffering by being fenced in. In the EU, we use a company called iSolus, which is the top law firm based out of Gibraltar, which is a pretty large iGaming hub, who's giving us gaming advice related to EU matters. And we're also looking carefully at Malta as a target market potentially to obtain a gaming license. Most recently, they published a paper for public consultation looking to create a licensing regime for blockchain-based gaming apps, and also are opening a public sandbox for blockchain-based gaming apps to operate within, which we plan on doing over the course of the summer. We'll be applying to do that.
I see.
Which was really cool because in the consultation paper, it included a very specific line that we were looking for, which is player funds can be escrowed in smart contracts, which I know sounds like intuitive, but in traditional online poker, there isn't such thing as a short-term escrow account by an automated agent on a blockchain.
Right.
So for them to have already come that far, for us is a big deal because it shows a path towards regulators allowing this new technology to be adopted and become more widespread in the online gaming industry.
I see. So obviously you've done your homework for regions that are arguably more conducive to supporting this kind of introduction to a new poker enterprise. In the context of compliance, let's just go there for a moment with regard to SEC. Just how on board are you with the movements of governments and their position on blockchain and crypto in general?
Sure. So let's paint two pictures. So there, in the first picture, there are companies that are rushing out white papers without significant thought to architectural design, instantly transitioning into token sales where they create the opaque pricing mechanism where they have large pre-sales, where some people get large bonuses or discounts, and then the public is given tokens at the full price, and then immediately the focus of the team is getting their token listed on exchanges, which in general creates this wild speculative market around a project that hasn't put anything out there.
Right.
That is, in my opinion, or in the worst of cases, they're just fraudulent from the get-go. This is, in my opinion, what regulators care about. They care about people who are trying to create a picture of themselves that is either not true or not well thought through, and then asking people for a lot of money and creating this hyper-speculative environment. This is what I believe has attracted the negative attention towards token sales globally.
Right.
The other picture...
Oh, sorry, just to interrupt, hence the reaction of governments like China. Let's get real with that. That's why they've banned ICOs, and that's why, obviously, you're an advocate, but many governments around the world are advocating for stabilizing this new economy.
Yes, exactly. So that is, in my opinion, there is this huge wave of money that went into token sales over the course of 2017, and because of the lack of transparency and because it's pretty easy to create a token in an ERC-20 contract, this type of wild west ecosystem was created. And the other picture I'd want to paint is what our belief is that utility tokens are a thing, that you need to structure your token sale in such a manner that promotes community growth and attracting individuals to your token sale who will actually realize the utility of the token. So for us, that is poker players. Right. That doesn't create a frenzied speculative environment. And how do you do this? So first, you have transparent pricing. For us, there's no pre-sale, discount, bonuses. All tokens are sold at the same price.
Okay, so let's just stop there for a moment. That's quite significant. So you are an equitable token structure. You are entirely about being a raw utility, and you're not trying to really enfranchise early access and try and afford a whale. Let's get some sort of significant financial benefit by being early.
100%. For us, there isn't any difference in pricing if you put in 1 Ether or 1,000 Ether. Okay.
So, you are arguably one of the very first to really lead the way. We've seen a few others, to my knowledge. Nex is an example, which is a decentralized exchange that really did try to be egalitarian by giving out a lottery. So really it was a case of luck. In your circumstance, really it's a price point issue. It's just an all for one, one for all approach. 100%.
And what else we do is all people who participate in our token sale will have access to our alpha. They can instantly start giving feedback. May 22nd is our alpha launch date, so we can have our token participants also become product testers and provide feedback so that we can continue to improve the app. In addition, our token is non-transferable until our mainnet launch, which is expected to be about November or December of this year. This, again, disincentivizes the get-rich-quick, come into a token sale, get my discount or my bonus, and flip the tokens on the exchange 1 week later.
Right.
So these are the different safeguards that we're putting in to help try to have our token sale be more of an engine for community growth and helping our eventual platform succeed. So we're thinking beyond the token sale. We need to grow a community and attract eventual customers to our platform to be successful.
I see. So in many ways, what you essentially are is you are an exemplar for the people to see how this can operate, how real utility can operate in the blockchain, so that it can build out a really longitudinal plan. You're not going to see a sudden spike, most likely, as you've alluded to, like we tend to see in this ICO climate, but rather you're going to see people adjust to the way it arguably should be.
And that's our opinion of where the future is going. The wild west, those days are over. There has been so much negative reaction to this past structuring of token sales that and the clampdown's already begun. The SEC sent out 80 subpoenas to companies who've done token sales earlier in the year. Right. And I think that trend's going to be continued. Another thing is the promises of get rich quick is also need to end. So if your marketing material says if you buy my token now, and in 4 weeks you're going to flip it at a 400% process. That's the exact kind of language that needs to be taken out and thrown in the garbage.
Okay, well, let's talk about now centralized business models, Ryan. Obviously, there are currently opportunities for different blockchains to allow equity investment, specifically into the beginning phase of a company. So no doubt you're still a company, despite being decentralized. So you clearly have backers from the beginning. Do they have a share or a stake in your company as you build out, essentially what you plan to do?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate to be backed by and funded by Consensus. So they as well as the team own Virtue Poker. So they are the model is an incubator of sorts. So Consensus funds a individual project, helps that project build out their team, build out their initial MVP, for us to even get us to an alpha, support us through the token sale process, or for some companies, private VC funding. And at the end of our token sale, we spin out, we become our own separate company, and Consensus remains a passive investor in the company. So for us, we are relatively independent already at this point, and will be fully independent in about mid-May.
I see. So in the realest sense, your token is by no means a security in its operation, as we've seen with the pseudo securities that have emerged through the ICO process. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Right. Well, if we could talk about now a little bit more on your random number generator. It's quite a unique design. It has several components to it. Just how important is that to your design? We mentioned initially about your shuffling mechanism. If we could just develop, expand on this.
Yeah, sure. So it's actually no single individual who's responsible for shuffling the deck. So we use a randomness algorithm called urandom. Essentially, we take the noise from your machine, and every player goes through that process and uses that. You could think of it as an RNG built into each player's machine that's utilized to shuffle the cards for each hand on the platform.
Okay. So it's pretty important. It's pretty important design.
It's definitely it's different from traditional poker in the sense that there isn't a single point of failure. Even if two players tried to tamper with the deck, as long as one player shuffles the deck correctly, the hand is fair. So as long as you trust your own computer, you can trust that the hand played on the platform is fair. And we will still go through, because of the legacy standards that have been set, we will still go through standard third-party certification using our mental poker protocol before we go live for real money gaming with the platform.
Okay.
So there's typical third-body companies called like Gaming Labs International, the GLI, who do eCogra. They do these type of certificates and certifications.
Right. And obviously one of the key components is the Ethereum contract, the smart contract itself. So what I wanted to ask you is, obviously you have a clear connection, we spoke about at the beginning, with Joe Lubin. He obviously is a co-founder of Ethereum. Now, is this necessarily a boon or a bust feature of your design, given that we've heard already some real concerns of Ethereum in comparison to some arguably more robust multi-chain designs and more parallel scaling designs coming? So you're hedging your bets on the Ethereum network itself, and particularly on its smart contract. So let's talk about why you did that, and why you're banking on it.
Yeah, for sure. So the smart contract functionality is integral to Virtue Poker. In my opinion, that's the number one value proposition that we offer, is the security of player funds by not having to trust a centralized entity with your deposits or withdrawal process. So the innovation behind Ethereum, the main innovation, are smart contracts, and that's 100% a core element of what we do. Right. One of the things I'll describe is, in the current version of the app that we'll release in the alpha, another misconception is that we're doing all of this on chain. All of that peer-to-peer card shuffling and gameplay is done off chain. And it's actually done using this peer-to-peer networking system where all players are communicating with each other for every individual action on a given table.
Right.
We only send a transaction to Ethereum when you join a table, at the end of each hand, and when you leave a table. And the requirement to submit that transaction at the end of each hand, we're eliminating via utilizing a state channel integration such as Plasma, which we're working on currently over the summer. And even with the app as is, the process of submitting a transaction at the end of each hand is asynchronous, meaning that we can submit a transaction to the contract and the players can move on to the next hand before that transaction is verified on chain. So anyway, long story short, we are Ethereum enthusiasts. We do believe in the scaling solutions that are being put forth by the Ethereum Foundation, and we are looking to integrate a Plasma solution into our app, potentially for our beta in the fall, but definitely by the end of the year for our full public launch.
Okay.
So for us, it's more of a cost issue than a speed issue. What we need to do on the speed side is we are actually working on solutions such as pre-shuffled decks, so that the beginning of a hand that there isn't a significant delay from that players see when going through that mental poker process. But again, these are optimizations that we're going to work on over the course of the alpha and beta, which is why we're releasing the app as an alpha. There's still a lot of work to be done. I don't want to kind of overpromise here, but we are pretty far along in terms of our product development, and we do expect to launch it by the end of the year on the mainnet.
I appreciate you explaining the off-chain aspect, because obviously if people didn't know about that, they would suppose quite rightly that there will just be such a huge pressure computationally for you to build out your blockchain plan, and you don't really require as much that computation. And certainly scalability is the buzzword right now, but again, there's a lot of theoretical numbers being thrown out there. The big question I want to pose to you, though, is about the utility aspect once again. Have you done specific tests so far to really ensure that Ethereum can cope with the requisites or the requirements of transactions that you need to function viably in the space that of poker?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say during periods of congestion, the app can still function. The players could create a table, be seated at a table, and while they're playing, even if the network became extremely congested, reconciliation would only delay would be in reconciliation. So again, because it's asynchronous, you would have a chain of transactions that would be sent to Ethereum that would be in queue, waiting to be verified.
Right.
But players would continue to play on the table. What the difference is in the UI with Ethereum as is, the payout wouldn't appear in the user's wallet until those transactions were actually verified on chain. So that for us isn't ideal. Ethereum definitely needs, in my opinion, the most important thing is state channels, so a Plasma solution for dApps to operate. But this is a general Ethereum ecosystem issue. It's not necessarily specific to Virtue Poker. We've already optimized the app, so 90+% of the code base is off-chain to reduce the amount of interaction we need with the Ethereum main chain.
I see.
In terms of testing, we play poker. It's probably one of the more fun ways for us to test the app. We just play a game of poker every Friday. We operate on the Ring B testnet. We've tried on different testnets. The app on testnets do about 70 to 80 hands per hour, which is still a little slow compared to what your PokerStars or your 888 Poker does. But again, these are things that we are continuing to work on and improve upon over the course of the summer.
Okay, and it's impressive that you're already experimenting and you're already playing with the platform and with the app itself. And this is a perfect segue, Ryan, to talk about the user flow. Let's talk about now how user-friendly is the interface. How easy is it for someone to really interact with in comparison to something like what people have already seen, like with PokerStars, for example?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I can walk you through what the alpha will look like step by step. For the account creation, you enter your email address and the Ethereum address that you use to purchase tokens. You create a username and a password, and then we generate a wallet for you. And this is definitely different from like your PokerStars. Your recovery phrase appears that we require you to write down and re-enter into the app. So that it's your private key. You can't lose that because, as we say, we can never access your. Both a good thing and huge responsibility for the user.
Sure.
Once the account is created, initially we're going to operate using a test version of our tokens. So it'll be test VPP, TVPP in the app, and you'll need to have some test ether from the RinkB test network in your wallet to join tables, at which point you select the table that you'd like to join by entering the custom game parameters that you're looking for, which initially will be limited, which matched with other players with a similar criteria, and a table is created and you play in the game. So that's for the alpha. I think part of the question that you're alluding to is how are we going to expand Virtue Poker beyond crypto enthusiasts who might already own cryptocurrency or Ether for someone who's never heard of this before?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that is 100% a fair question, a challenge for any decentralized app building a solution that only utilizes cryptocurrency in their application. So for us, initially our target audience segment are those who already own cryptocurrency because it's much easier for them to use our application. But we understand the need to expand to a more global poker audience. So we're looking into third-party partnerships with various exchanges that would allow the fiat to crypto conversion.
Okay.
The industry is still nascent in the sense that there isn't a company out there that provides this type of service for that is very common, that provides this service for a lot of apps. But we understand that's a huge requirement and a need. Another way that we can address this is by a effort of content marketing, where we communicate our value propositions, communicate the utilities of blockchain technology and why it adds value, incentivize individuals to download the application and then airdrop tokens in those individuals' wallets so that they can play and test out the app without having to go to an exchange and create an account and buy Ether and convert their token, etc. And the third-party integration, so there's two partnerships that I, in my opinion, think the app will need to succeed. So the first is the on-ramp for those who don't already own cryptocurrency. The second is a stable coin. So once you're in the app, another question that's frequently asked is, well, what if I don't want to be exposed to the volatility risk of either your token or Ether? And it's another fair question. So luckily, the maker is blazing ahead like extremely fast with their DAI stablecoin token. They're working with Digix, and Digix is going to have a gold-backed stablecoin. So whether or not we end up utilizing either a gold-backed coin or the DAI stablecoin in the app, that's a second partnership that I believe that we will need to succeed again for outside of the core crypto audience.
I see.
So the way it would work is we would provide an integration that would allow you to shift to a stable coin in the app. So while you're not actively playing, you wouldn't be exposed to volatility risk. For those who are more interested in taking the risk, they could hold it in our token or an Ether. Okay,
so what's good to know as well is we've seen the problems associated with the volatility of BTC. We've seen it obviously even with Ethereum. So given that you are taking the pegging of it with an alternative, with a more stable coin, that's really significant right now, and as we see, hopefully some of these issues stabilize in the future. If we could talk now about some of your short and long-term goals, you have very specific ones outlined, and on top of that, you also have a whole list of goals generally. So let's just talk about goals. What specific ones come to mind when we discuss the future ahead, let's say in the next year?
Yeah, for sure. So the focus for 2018 is to launch a successful alpha, move into a beta where we introduce new game types, build our core community around Virtue Poker, and intake all of the feedback that is provided throughout the course of that alpha and beta to help formulate a strong product for full public launch by the end of this year. Right. The goal for 2019, and by the way, another goal would be to obtain our gaming license, which we expect to do before our public launch by the end of the year.
Ryan, just want to ask you a question on that. How hard is it to get a license? Because obviously we've seen many centralized casinos really fight for them, and despite perhaps their billions of dollars, we won't name names specifically, but obviously you'd know of many serious, I guess, players in the industry worldwide. So how hard is it, and would you argue that it's going to be challenging in the future for other competitors to achieve?
100%. I've been working on this for 18 months, doing research on various target jurisdictions, and the progress that has been made in both Malta and Gibraltar is significant. I expect for us to be a part of the public sandbox environment in Malta over the course of the summer with our alpha, and get the application process by early fall.
Right.
And I've spoken with the Malta Gaming Authority, with individuals and I can tell you that they are very interested in ensuring that they create a proper licensing regime for blockchain-based gaming apps. In fact, the release of the public consultation last week was a huge step forward, because typically what happens thereafter is, after 6 weeks of public commentary, it goes to the government to be turned into law. So I suspect over the summer this will be codified into law in Malta.
Wow.
So that is a really big step. In my opinion, the gaming is one of the first sectors to adapt to innovation, and typically in gaming, the target gaming jurisdictions such as Malta, Gibraltar, and the UK are also very forward-thinking with regards to this technology. Very optimistic about our prospect of obtaining a gaming license, even with our unique architecture, by the end of the year.
Right.
But again, thing is certain. I won't want to overpromise, underdeliver, but I'm very confident based upon what I've been seeing and hearing.
What is really impressive, Ryan, is just the degree of homework that you guys have done in the last few years, and the fact that it is taking years. You're not rushing the process. Let's talk about now your advisors. I'm really excited about this for you. Not only do you have essentially the co-founder of Ethereum, which sets up a mutually beneficial framework for both Ethereum and for yourselves, but you also have some of the top poker players on the planet, 3 in fact, that are involved in your advisory, I guess, who are direct advisors to your platform. So how did you secure them, and how important are they?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're all vital to our success. So Joe Lubin you can almost think of him as the first employee of, the first team member of Virtue Poker. I work out of the same office as Joe. He obviously has his pulse to the updates of the industry and in the ecosystem. He's paramount in most major decisions that our app makes, and he provides the expertise from the blockchain technology industry for our application, which is obviously paramount for us.
He also has significant backing. He's one of the wealthiest investors in crypto in the world.
True.
So that's quite a significant thing to have backing you, realistically.
Yeah. So Joe is he's been honestly, it's probably the one of the most influential and awesome people I've ever met in my life. He's changed my life.
Right. Clearly, you're here now talking about your project, so that's great. And let's talk about some other really influential people as well, Ryan. You have Phil Ivey, the most successful poker player ever, and he's on your advisory team. That's a pretty impressive thing.
So I'll give a bit of background on how we came about having our 3 pros become a part of our team. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Sorry about that. This is
that's okay. Yeah, guys, if you are obviously viewing the challenges of the network, that's just the nature of, I guess, Skype around the world.
Yeah, sorry guys that I'm in a hotel. Typically, it wouldn't be this bad. But yeah, so Dan Coleman was our first pro who came on board. He reached out to me about 2 weeks after we put out the white paper. He was already very interested in blockchain technology, having been a purchaser of tokens in the past.
Right.
So I introduced him to Virtue Poker over the course of the next few weeks. And he was he asked very strong questions, not dissimilar to the questions that you've actually asked me in this interview. And he came on board along with Brian Rast in September. Both of them are still very active, playing both live and online poker, and have been very influential in helping us shape our product strategy, our marketing strategy. And they've been solid brand ambassadors as well for us. And through Dan, I was introduced to Phil Ivey. I actually spent a week with him in Hong Kong, introducing him to Virtue Poker, and talked through, it's pretty much exactly what I've spoke to you about, which is how we're to tackle these tough problems in online poker. He's a little bit newer to the space in terms of it was more of an education effort to first start with explaining exactly how blockchain technology works, how smart contracts work. And he came on board our team in November of 2017. And those three guys together for us, I think, helps us both connect with more broader global poker community. So they serve as, great assets for helping us bolster our marketing strategy and get better exposure. And also they have similarly to the way that Joe has his pulse to the Ethereum and blockchain technology community, those three guys clearly still have their pulse to what's going on in the online poker and live poker world.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, they will be pretty influential in helping us, I think, launch a successful platform.
Do they directly invest in you?
Yeah, so they all, I can't disclose specific numbers, but they all will have a stake in Virtue Poker and its ultimate future success. So we believe that was a great way to align incentives, to not just be a face and a name on the platform, but be invested in the growth and the ultimate success of Virtue Poker. So all of them will be on board with us for a minimum of 2 years, which we're really excited about. And we're looking to continue to expand that effort, building out our Virtue Poker Pro team, especially with not necessarily, very globally famous names, but more direct to the community online grinders who will ultimately also be a driving factor for our success.
I see. So it's good to hear what you're saying is that these advisors have a long-term position. They want to see your company build out because it advantages them, but they also like your product because they're in this world of poker.
Correct.
So that's exciting to know. Let's talk now about the scientific aspect. How difficult was it to go and find those key scientists that really could build out the challenging components of your architecture?
So it's still ongoing to ensure that the ultimate security of the platform stands the test of time. So we brought on two individuals who put out a paper. You can search for it, type in instantaneous decentralized poker. I saw it pop up January last year. The first man's name, Ido Bentoff. He's a PhD candidate in cryptography at Cornell. So he's helping provide the oversight and an honest review of our underlying card shuffling algorithm to ensure it's secure. And his co-author, Andrew Miller, is an advisor to Zcash. He's a professor at University of Illinois. So those two guys, along with Jim, our lead developer, are continuing to iterate and improve the shuffling algorithm, along with another lead developer for our team, Javi Franco Algarada, who has been influential in helping us improve the shuffling speed. So these guys together for us are our core team working on that and optimizing that underlying game engine. So partially what we are working on throughout the alpha and beta is stress testing it with real users, which expand the alpha users of the app beyond the Virtue Poker team and people who've worked at Consensus to the initial community that we build around those who buy our token in the first phase of our sale.
I see. Well, perfect segue once again. You're doing well with these sort of suggestions of what to talk to you about next, and that is the token itself. So if you could talk to us about the ICO plan in the context of, what is to come, specifically what people can expect, without in the injection of any FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. That's not going to happen in your case. So what can people expect in terms of the rollout of how we can engage?
Yeah, for sure. So the first phase of our token sale, there'll be a soft cap of 6 million USD and a hard cap of 12.5 million USD, which will be expressed in Ether 24 hours before the sale. Obviously, there's a lot of volatility right now.
And what's the individual cap?
The individual cap currently is set at 10% of the maximum contribution of the total amount.
Okay.
So for us, it will be between $500,000 and $1 million. So the idea behind the first phase, again, is to be able to grow the community of alpha users around the app, be able to provide incentives, which we'll be releasing most likely next week around those who participate in phase one, which are all promotions targeted for those interested being either players or justices, and I'll definitely share them with you once those are finalized and sent out.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So let's talk about now in terms of your distribution model as well, Ryan. How did you sort of plan that out in terms of ensuring that you aren't just a robust design for tomorrow, but in a decade's time?
Yeah, for sure. So we have 40% of the tokens are held for the company reserve. So this is to ensure that we can grow the platform once it's launched, which for online poker, to give you an idea, PokerStars spends $100 million a year in marketing. It's not that different across all of the major companies. We've seen PokerStars do is take away a lot of the player benefits and pay for expensive sponsorships for people like Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. So for us, what we want to do is to ensure that we can grow the platform by honoring the players, which is via free rolls, guaranteed tournaments, deposit bonuses for new players, those types of programs and incentives to encourage people to try out our platform. To go back to your previous question, as you said, it's a challenge for people to try something new, especially when the method of wagering is using cryptocurrency. For us, marketing is key. Marketing is always key for most online B2C gambling companies. So that's part of the structuring for us and the thought process behind that. And also why our target for phase one is funding to get us through the alpha, the beta into a product launch. And then continue to grow from there. I
see. So just in terms of the token itself, we've actually seen, Ryan, the emergence of these 100x tokens come forth, as you've mentioned, as a pseudo-security when they're arguing their utility. Is it fair to say that you want the opposite of that? You want something that doesn't really have a lot of sort of change in its price value because of the whole very point that it's designed to be a utility? Is that the objective? Is that you want it to be something pretty stable that doesn't have significant growth?
Yeah, our fundamental objective is that people purchase the token and end up realizing its utility. We want poker players and those interested in staking and becoming justices to participate in our token sale. And ultimately, I think a mistake is generally made. Again, going back to your previous question about what's kind of been bad models for token sales around price. People who are solely price focused and not actually focused on the ultimate success of the DApp that they're trying to build, to me, is super problematic. I think that the two aren't necessarily non-correlated. So I think the ultimate success of the platform drives a large community growth, which drives the success of the token. And that's what our goal is.
Right.
So our goal is to launch a successful DApp on Ethereum. I would love to be the first blockchain-based decentralized application that is mass adopted by a community outside of just the crypto enthusiast community.
So essentially, what you want is people to use your token to play. Play in the space of the gambling game. What you are not hoping for is for them to perceive it as an investment.
Correct. And one of the things that I do want to clarify is we will need to work with exchanges. It's appropriate for us to work with exchanges once the app is on the mainnet for players who wish to convert their tokens into either Ether or another cryptocurrency to eventually get it into a currency that they can spend, anywhere they want. So it's not to say that we'll never partner with exchanges, but we're limiting the speculative element of the token until that functionality is there to justify an exchange element for our token.
What about DEX, exchanges in the sense of atomic swaps or, things that are emerging in that space? Are you engaging or planning to engage in that sort of space?
Yeah, so our token still, we have a function in our contract that makes it still non-transfer. You couldn't list them even on a decentralized exchange until we allow the functionality after our mainnet launch. But another consensus project, which I think is an awesome project, is AirSwap. They're working on a decentralized exchange. I think that they are the future. I'm really excited to see the prevalence of them and see their eventual kind of growth and takeover of the market.
Nice plug there, Ryan. Well done, inserting the plug-in for consensus. We appreciate that. But let's talk about that as well. You're doing so well providing sort of segues for me. There's been some argument right now about consensus having some of its projects delayed. So is that a fair criticism? Generally, considering that consensus generally has some challenges ahead, given the way the market is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I won't. At consensus, projects are relatively. I would say there's a shared knowledge pool. You can sanity check a commit you're looking to do to a code base with other team members from a different project at consensus, but each team is relatively isolated. I will say that that consensus is trying to do a lot. It has its hands in a lot of different things. The mission behind consensus is to be the agent of change and growth of this ecosystem. It's an ambitious goal.
Yes.
And also the community, despite the huge run up in price in the crypto markets in general, is still a very young nascent industry where, the Ethereum's been live for less than 3 years. There are companies like Gnosis, AirSwap, Grid Plus, and Uport, which I think all have valiant value propositions. I know some are more delayed than others, but I don't work in their day-to-day operations, so I can't really comment on that. But I know that they're all working really hard to bring value to the ecosystem in general.
I see. I appreciate that clarification.
A lot of other consensus projects people use every single day without realizing it. MetaMask is a consensus project.
Right.
Infura is a consensus project. So there, again, there's a lot of consensus now is 750 people. We're doing a lot of things at once, which is both a good and a bad thing. But again, it's that ultimate mission of trying to bring the decentralized revolution to the world that is underpinning this.
Well said, and also there is the aspect of seed investment that they do provide as well. If we could talk about now some of the other concerns, and that is your competitors. You well articulated that you don't regard anyone as a competitor because they're not simply doing anything that relates to your patent and your product and your application. But in the wider space or the wider frame of poker, what can you say about those that do exist? Just for a reference point.
So I would say that who we see as competitors are those who are existing poker companies in the centralized ecosystem who we need to compete with to take market share from to be ultimately successful. Some of the blockchain, some of the competitors that are supposedly in our space that I've seen out there, not to name names, but they've done exactly the what I've said previously is the wrong model, which is to raise funds quickly via large pre-sales, discounts, bonuses, list their tokens on exchanges, proceed to not care about those who bought into the public sale, and have the price of their token tank. Also, I saw one company who pretty much is a centralized online poker company that uses their token as a deposit and withdrawal method, which, by the way, already exists. There's America's Card Room, which is a site that caters towards the U.S., again, which is also questionable. But they accept already 20 various cryptocurrencies as a deposit and withdrawal mechanism. So there's no innovation, in my opinion, there. There's a couple of other competitors who are trying to do what we do. I've read their white papers. I've spoken to one guy at one of their teams, and I think competition is healthy. I think they're not quite as far along as us, but again, ultimately we need to prove that we are a application that can not only stand out to our competitors specifically within the blockchain space, but also to the broader poker community, which is our ultimate target and our vision.
I see. I appreciate your brutal honesty, and that's what I am enjoying with this conversation. If we can talk about now some controversies, and that is with regard to the advisors themselves. No doubt you would be aware of them. Specifically with Phil, we know that he's been embroiled in some controversies in the past, and that has to be discussed because, that was specifically poker related.
Yeah, so it's a fair question, and when we brought Phil on board, it was a lot of feedback that we received was based upon that past scandal that I actually mentioned in our own white paper, and I understand that is a question that's going to be raised over and over, but I can tell you this: we brought Phil on because of his unprecedented industry expertise, his obvious success in the industry, and largely based on, Dan Coleman spoke to his integrity, spoke to his non-association as a poker player in the community at the time, with Full Tilt in the past. I can safely tell you that from my interactions with him, I can't really comment specifically on his interaction or involvement, but I think he is a man of of extreme value to our company. But I do understand why there is the association and the question gets brought up.
Sure.
But the recommendation for us largely came from the pros already on our team, Dan and Brian, who both thought he could add a ton of value for our project.
Sure. And obviously, you're going to be focused on the action plan anyway. So you're going to ensure that action speaks louder than words. So it's about what they bring to the table in each of their assets, or their skill sets, rather.
Correct.
Okay. If we could talk now about your social media aspect. You have one of very few, actually, co-founders who really seem to be proponents of the social media space. And how imperative it is to build out your community. So what are you doing to do that, and how seriously are you taking lead influencers or lead community and community members within the crypto and blockchain domain?
Yeah, for sure. So what our strategy is we have a lot of unique value propositions that are only explained through conversations like this, or long form content, or explainer videos and things like that, because we're trying to describe how we utilize the Ethereum blockchain and smart contracts, how we utilize a peer-to-peer card shuffling algorithm, which aren't things that can be expressed in a display ad or in another form of type of marketing. So for us, our strategy is to partner with influencers and people who who have a engaged audience, who are interested in learning about these types of things, who will sit down and watch a 20-minute, 30-minute, 1-hour video to get an understanding of the underpinnings of how we work, who will read our content on our blog on Medium, or the things that we post on Twitter to get a better understanding, so they understand what we're trying to bring to the table. So that's part of the marketing strategy for us that will only continue, post token sale through alpha into a product launch towards the end of the year, is being able to explain these tough things to people who are interested in learning them, and eventually, ideally, having people convert to customers who want to use the app.
Sure, Ryan, thank you for explaining that. I wanted to ask you, one fundamental question with regard to the user, and that is your target market for the consumer specifically really the innate gambler? Is it the person who wants to just dabble in gambling and utilize it as a utility? Yes, but really, ultimately, isn't it about playing the game?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two separate audience segments in online poker. There's the recreational player who plays for more entertainment, There's the semi-professional and the professional player who plays online to earn income. What we're trying to do with Virtue Poker is create a safe environment for players to play online so that the recreational player doesn't feel like they're getting cheated and feels like they're getting the value from playing online, and ideally improves over time. And we need to create a online poker system that is easy to play on, that allows the professional player to still, earn a source of income. And for us, that's kind of what we're looking to do. So the idea of providing the elimination of player deposit requirements for us having custody over player deposits, I think is attractive for both target audience. The idea of this peer-to-peer card shuffling algorithm, so players can sleep safe at night knowing that they're playing a fair game of poker, I think that's targeted more for a recreational player who saw the past scandals of online poker, who might not play anymore online.
Right.
Our focus on game security, which is, again, providing a fair environment where third-party software tools that, professional players can utilize to target weaker players, that those aren't allowed on the site, that we try to prevent bots and multi-accounting to the best of our ability. This, we feel, targeting promotions to attract a wide swath of audience, of the poker audience to our app. These are the types of things that we're looking to do to try to grow the platform and be successful in the market.
Absolutely, and it's exciting to hear that you are focused on providing autonomy for the user. That is really one of the biggest assets. It provides us with the control, as the decentralized source of it all. So Ryan Gittleson, it's been an absolute privilege. We've learned a great deal today about what you represent, what you stand for, and most importantly, the hard work that your team's put in to build out what is already a world leader in this very exciting decentralized space and domain of poker on the blockchain. Is there anything you'd like to add, Ryan, just to address all of the listeners who've survived this very long process of unpacking what you are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would like to thank everyone for listening for the past hour about what we do, what we're trying to build. Our ultimate goal is to build an application for the online poker industry that allows people to create a safe environment for people to play online, and ultimately be the bridge towards mainstream adoption beyond the crypto community to the broader global community. So we're trying, our ultimate value proposition is safety first. So we're trying to create a safe and fair online, and that's what we hope will make us ultimately successful.
Well, right. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and thank you for having me. I appreciate your time and your enthusiasm, and it was a great series of questions you asked, I think.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate everything I've learned today, and what I'm most excited about, to be honest, is that you've taught me that there really are benevolent blockchainers out there trying to do innovative things, even in the poker domain, because you are trying to be fair with the way you approach your ICO. So that's really commendable. Congratulations to all your team. I wish you all the very best in the future. I'm sure that we'll be talking, and hopefully one day Joe can get online as well and tell us why he thinks, from an Ethereum's perspective, why you are excellent.
Oh, absolutely. We can ideally arrange that sometime in the future. And thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, mate.